Yeah, so for Sacramento's newly surging passive income strategy, a lot of it has to do with investing in real estate, which a lot of people will say, oh, it's not really new. But what's new is some programs that are coming out for loans. And then also a big trend, which is that a lot of state workers, they just announced, are having to come back to work. And so there's a lot of areas around state capitol and then different facilities like franchise tax board, although I heard that is going to be a little bit more delayed on when they have to come back to work. But why is that important to real estate investors is that a lot of these areas, if you're trying to be strategic about, hey, I want to buy something and I want to have good equity growth, you want to look at one, the job market and its stability, which to me, state jobs, I've known people who have hired certain agency groups that teach them how to get state jobs. Some of the things that they teach to me are very unethical, but that's how valuable a lot of people see these state jobs because supposedly it's hard to get fired from them. And there's not a lot of layoffs. So it's a very stable job, good pensions, good growth. So if I'm trying to be an investor and say, where is a good area to buy homes in, where I know that the rental market is going to be strong because the job market's going to be strong, I would say that there's a lot of areas around Sacramento decently close to different state positions, whether it's franchise tax board, even the Department of Justice for California. I think they just moved their office somewhere else because they were getting harassed. And then a few other and then of course the state capitol, but anywhere that's commuting distance to that is going to be a good investment. And then price ranges, I'm seeing that a lot of prices are very reasonable and you might compete a little bit with some first-time home buyers if you're trying to go really low in price range, but there is a sweet spot around 450 and above that are not really selling. And I think those are amazing opportunities for people who are looking for, hey, I want really good passive income. Now, as far as the loan side of things, the new loan programs that are coming out are really loose requirements when it comes to your DSCR ratio, so debt service coverage ratio. Basically, how do I qualify off the income the property is going to produce or is producing in order for me to qualify? They've really loosened that up. Same with down payment requirements, and then same with interest rates. They've made them a little bit more affordable because they stopped allowing huge organizations to buy up these properties. And then the flex term. So there are some loan options out there where it's interest only periods of time because maybe you need to renovate the property and then you're going to refinance because you've had an increased value and you've put in a tenant. And that makes it a lot more reasonable for investors as well. So there's a lot of really unique programs that I'm finding if someone comes to me and they say, this is my situation, here's what I can do. I want to build net worth because I just heard 2/3 of the net worth in the United States come from real estate, and property owners property owners have 44 times more net worth than homeowners. And so even if you're someone I want to buy a house to live in it, then eventually move out and rent it out, that's the home that where should I be buying? I would focus on areas where there's easy commuting distance to some Sacramento state type jobs. And a big thing that I get all the time, and I'll introduce my guest speaker, Bless here. Bless, what company are you with?
So my name is Bless McCrary. I'm with Advent Properties.
Okay. Advent Properties. That's right. Based out of San Francisco.
So we have an office in Sacramento and also in the Bay Area. So Oakland, San Francisco, and San Diego. We manage over 1,000 doors. So we're expanding.
I love it. Yeah. I didn't realize you were in San Diego too.
Yes, in San Diego as well. To kind of touch on what you were just saying, actually, the reason why we expanded out to Sacramento, because Sacramento is one of the top 4 places in California that people are moving to.
That's
right.
So
there is need out here. So
I love it. Yeah. And I wanted Bless to come on because, I've been a real estate agent. I work a lot as pretty much exclusively as a mortgage broker now. And one of the things that I get from a lot of clients who don't want to sell right now, maybe they want to build a portfolio of real estate because they want to have that net worth, maybe some passive income. there are a lot of fears around tenants, and they swear that California is the worst place to have rentals because of the landlord tenant laws. And I've read up on the landlord tenant laws, and I just don't believe that that's true. And then every time I hear a horror story, almost, I'd probably actually say every single time there wasn't a property management company. If there was, it usually is, hey, I could never get a hold of the property management company. It almost seemed like they closed their doors, which I haven't really heard that much. But there's a lot of value in having a property management company. And when someone says to me, well, I really want to just manage my own property, and then they complain later about, hey, it's not as passive of an income as people think. Well, that's because you didn't have a property management company. And so I wanted to bring Bless on because I wanted her to answer some common questions that a lot of people have. And so Bless, to start off, as a property manager, can you tell me a little bit more about, the typical daily workload and tasks that you take on for your clients?
Oh boy. So every day is different. That's why I love this job. Well, one of the reasons why I love my job, but every day is different. And so day to day for a property manager is communication between owners and tenants, work orders, maintenance, coordinating with vendors, marketing, running comms, screening applicants, touring, accounting, paying invoices, sending out owner statements, putting out fires. So there's a lot of different moving pieces when it comes to management. I think what allows us to be successful is we're only as strong as your team. And so just making sure that we have a strong team, and everybody are pretty good qualified team members. So that would be like a day-to-day for us, or for me.
Awesome. And how many team members do you have?
So we have 16 team members, and that's going to be all together, including maintenance. It's broken into 3 departments. So you have your accounting, you have your maintenance, and you have your leasing. So it's going to be 16 team members.
Gosh. See, and once again, this is why, people say, well, I don't think I could take on any more of a workload. Okay, then don't. Yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, when you really think about it too, because I get owners that say they can do it. But you were just talking about the different laws and regulations when it comes to landlords and tenants. And there is a lot. So you want to make sure that you have a professional.
Right.
All of our property managers, we have our CCRM, our California Apartments of Associations. We're certified property managers. We have to take X amount of courses, hours, but also we're keeping up with the different laws and regulations and what's changing, basically like daily, I feel like. And so if you're not doing that, you can lose your biggest investment, which is your property. And so you want to make sure you have professionals managing, giving the proper addendums, the proper notices, knowing when you can raise rents, how the max you can raise rent, how much deposit. So there's just a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will say this, from a tenant perspective, when I get a lot of clients that call me to say, hey, I'm sick and tired of renting, I want to buy a house. A lot of times when they bring up to me something that the landlord is doing, I say, well, is there a property manager you deal with? And they say no. And then they tell me what the landlord is doing. And I say, hey, that's illegal. They can't do that. So I think that it's not just the passive income too. It's worth the legal cost. But to me, whenever I plan, and you and I were talking about this a little bit before, kind of a financial strategy for people, and hey, let's look at building net worth for you, if you want to retire in the future. Not that I'm some financial advisor, but one of the things that a lot of people miss is they think, well, I'm not going to be making that much from the property. There's a lot of value in the long-term play of it with the net worth, but also, and we'll talk a little bit about that probably in the future when it comes to adding more doors to your portfolio. But you're not looking at, hey, I'm going to add a property manager or not because I want more passive income. It's worth the cost because your value is in the appreciation.
Exactly. And then it's also kind of like, when you were just saying that, it's like insurance. When you pay for car insurance, you're not going to get into an accident every day, but it's good for you to have that insurance. So if and when that happens, you're covered. And so it's the same thing with your property. You want to make sure that you have that insurance, that property manager, that professional, that's your face that is protecting your asset. And so not having that, I mean, you're taking a big risk, a huge risk,
Absolutely.
especially in California. And then we're held to a certain standard. It's different when you're just a private owner. There's certain things you can do. There's things from a property management perspective and having a business, we're held accountable. Licenses are at stake. So we have to follow fair housing laws and regulations and stay buttoned up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then to my next question, many clients want to rent out their current home instead of selling it, but they've heard many tenant horror stories. I put that in quotes. In my experience, and I've kind of already talked about this, but in my experience, most of these stories stem from the landlords, not having property managers, hiring, putting friends in, maybe advertising too much, but then not screening the tenant. And so do you mind talking about what does your vetting process and your screening process for tenants look like?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you hit the nail right on the head. A lot of times you hear horror stories because the screening process wasn't thorough. And then you didn't have systems in place, right? So our vetting process is very, very thorough. We make sure we do credit check, landlord verification. We also make sure that we're increasing the qualifications based on how many adults are in the home. So that way, if something happens, because life happens, right? Someone loses a job, goes on leave, there's a cushion so that rent can be covered. We qualify our tenants based on their net income, what they bring in after taxes, not gross. And then also taking their monthly debt and deducting that from the net income, checking references. And so that's our process when it comes to vetting. We also include the owner in the process. So once we do the vetting and we do the screening, we send it over to the owner so they can take a look at the application and feel comfortable moving forward with the applicant. But we're straight across the board. We follow fair housing. We set expectations from the beginning when it comes to our applicants. So that way they know our standards and what's to be expected. And to back that up, also when it comes to that lease agreement, right? Making sure everything's in writing, the proper addendums, everything's documented. So when that's signed, they are committing to these rules and our criteria and what we're expecting of them during their tenancy.
I love it. You even just said some things that I didn't even think about, but okay. And then for my next question, how important is it for landlords to maintain their properties? Are you seeing that there are higher rents and maybe less turnover as well, and or better tenants if a property has renovations?
Yes. So you are who you attract. And so you're going to track what you put out there, right? And so if you put out a property that's well maintained, you're going to get qualified tenants that's coming in. Also, it's being preventative from maintenance, things that needs to happen, that's going to happen in the future, right? So you're thinking long-term financially, being preventative when it comes to maintenance requests. It also creates an opportunity for you to increase the value, the rent that you want to market the home for, right? It's very, very competitive. Also, people are very visual too. So before someone even tours, they're looking at the marketing ad, they're looking at the amenities, they're looking at the home is updated. That's going to be the first thing they see for them to want to schedule a tour. So overall, it's super, super important. You were talking earlier about, create people. We were talking about people moving out here. There's so many new builds. It's insane. Properties are getting built like in a blink of an eye, and they're newly renovated multifamilies or residentials, and so you want to make sure that you are being competitive with that as well.
Yeah, I love it. And then, I've had this conversation with some of my veteran clients who have used their VA loan, bought multiple properties, but they're trying to look for ways to just reduce their, how would I put it, like their liability, but essentially they want to do a 1031 exchange from their single family residence to more of a multifamily, multiple doors, and they have a lot of equity for that. My couple of questions are you seeing more stability when people have multiple doors? Do you all offer, better deals as far as pricing for your services when someone has a multi-door unit?
I wouldn't say I see more stability with multiple doors. There's more room for income. We have economies of scale. So based on how many doors you have, we will lower the management fee, right? We're managing more doors. But we treat all of our clients the same, whether you have a single family home or you have a multi-family home. We provide the same service. But to answer your question, the management fee does decrease based on how many doors you have.
Awesome. And then, many homeowners who want to build a property portfolio portfolio of properties express, nervousness about adding more to their plate and workload, which we've kind of talked about this. But how often do your landlords have to, call, or you call them and they have to handle problems themselves, when working with you? And then what is a typical turnover when it comes to tenants, for the landlord, or typical turnover with your company? Do you have a lot of landlords that sign up for your services and then don't use it in the future? Or, could you speak to that?
Okay, so there was a few questions. So let me try to break them down. So most of our owners are long-standing relationships. It's very rare that we get an owner that's our management contract is 18 months that ends it within 18 months, unless they're selling. We usually have standing relationships with our clients. That's how we've really built, to be transparent with you. The next question, what was the next question? I'm sorry, it was like
no, you're fine. Yeah. So and then the first one was really, hey, how often are landlords having to call you to ask a lot of questions, or you are having to call them, handling problems, issues, whatever it might be?
It's rare. Every owner's different, right? You have some owners that are super duper hands-on. This is their baby. They were managing for 30 years. We have a system in place when it comes to work orders that the owners get at the same time as our maintenance team. And so sometimes the owners that get in, they'll call. But for the most part, I get owners that reach out and say, "Yes, I haven't heard anything. Is everything good?" I'm like, "Yeah, no news is good news." So it's really rare unless there's like an emergency, something that we have to get approval for, because we do have a maintenance limit of $695. So reaching out regarding that, we're putting out a fire or something, or maybe a question regarding owner statement, but they're pretty hands off. Our job is to remove the workload off the shoulders of our owners so they can go live their lives. That is the goal. We shouldn't be communicating every day. If you have a property manager where you guys are on the phone every day, that's a problem, unless you guys are resolving a big problem every blue moon. But for the most time, you should just be on the beach somewhere with your feet kicked up on Mai Tai. That's how it should be, or whatever you like. So very minimal communication when it comes to like day to day. But as far we do our owner statements and things like that for things that are pressing.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Well, and then for anyone who is looking for property management, where can they reach out to talk to you and your company?
Absolutely. So adventpropertiesinc.com. I do all the onboarding for our property. So I wish we can put my contact information up, but the best number to reach me, 916-426-2776. And then B McCrary at adventpropertiesinc.com. You can go on our website and then you'll be able to see all of our team members there. You'll be able to see my contact information. Also, if you go on Yelp or Google, type the company in, we'll pop up. We have great ratings and reviews as well. So I'll be happy to have a conversation. I love being consultative. So it's not even just about you needing our services. You might have questions about, which direction you should go as far as your rental property already have, or possibly wanting to start your own portfolio. And I'm happy to have that call with you.
I love it. Well, thank you.